Hi guys, welcome to my channel. So WJHL and NewsNation just put out some new videos on the Summer Wells case since it is the 2-year anniversary. So they talked to Summer's father, Don Wells. So Summer Wells, remember Summer Wells? Cute little Summer, 5 years old when she vanishes from her home 2 years ago, June 15th, 2021, gone. Nobody can find her for 2 years. Haven't found her yet. Family believes she may have been abducted. At least that's what they say. There's a lot of skepticism of whether they are telling the truth or not.
I do know that back a few months after Summer was reported missing, her father did take some of us out on a dog trail near their house. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this area, but where they live is very rural. They live up on top of a hill, and it's kind of hard to get to their house. However, they did say that the police dogs, that their scent of Summer kind of stopped at the end of the dog trail there. Police haven't really made a big deal about that like Summer's parents have. So unfortunately, that really led to nowhere. But when it comes to that abduction claim, again, law enforcement hasn't, gone for that, or they also haven't denied it really.
So remember on June 15th, 2021, Summer's parents said she was helping her mother and grandmother plant flowers before going inside to play with her toys down the basement. She passes her brothers, goes downstairs, and then all of a sudden her mom comes in trying to look for her and she's nowhere to be found. At least this is the story that Candace, her mother, has been telling. She said she yelled downstairs for her a couple times, didn't get an answer, which was unusual because she usually always answers her. So she went down there to check and she was nowhere inside. She was just gone. Okay, so I guess one clue police are still looking for is a pickup truck that was seen in the area around the time Summer vanished. Detectives said they were looking for a red or maroon pickup truck with ladders on the back. But Lawson admitted that he's not even sure if it's connected to the case. So there is a lot of land around the area, so if somebody did abduct her and then try to hide her, I mean, it would be hard to search every inch of that land. So there is a good chance that she could be out there somewhere, in my opinion. I don't know how I feel about this. I would go back and forth between, if I thought the parents knew something more or they were involved or they weren't.
Almost immediately, Summer's parents became the center of a police investigation.
Summer's parents, Candace and Dawn, had something to do with this, or have you ruled that out?
We haven't ruled anything out. Everything's possible.
Could she have gotten herself into a situation where it wasn't her fault, but
no.
You know what I mean?
No, she's a good mother. She loves her children. She's not going to allow any situation like that. The biggest mistake she might have made is maybe choosing some wrong friends, which is, it happens.
Don Wells pleaded guilty to driving under the influence last year. Candace also filed an order of protection against him, but asked for it to be dismissed. He now faces criminal charges in 3 states, including a domestic assault arrest in 2020. 2 years later, investigators have not charged either Don or his wife in connection to Summer's disappearance.
Still have no idea. I mean, it's a tough one. You can't judge their parenting because maybe they had there were some issues with their parenting doesn't necessarily mean that they were involved. But let me clarify that. Of course, you could judge somebody for their parenting, but what I'm saying is that's not going to be enough to convict them, So, yeah, we, as true crimers in this community, we like to go back and look at everything, myself included, because, you could tell a lot about somebody from their past, and it's very important, so don't take what I'm saying the wrong way. But what I'm saying is that's just, we need more than that. So just because they look like maybe they allegedly may not have been the best parents, that still isn't enough, at least to convince me that they are involved. And it's not enough in the court of law too. So that's where the issue is. So we're finding all these issues and these maybe problems in their parenting, but it's just still not enough.
Could she have gotten herself into a situation where it wasn't her fault, but
no.
You know what I mean?
No, she's a good mother. She loves her children. She's not going to allow any situation like that. The biggest mistake she might have made is maybe choosing some wrong friends, which is, it happens.
Don Wells pleaded guilty to driving under the influence last year. Candace also filed an order of protection against him, but asked for it to be dismissed. He now faces criminal charges in 3 states, including a domestic assault arrest in 2020. 2 years later, investigators have not charged either Don or his wife in connection to Summer's disappearance.
Let me know what you guys think, because I haven't looked into this case in a while. I know there's somebody that have still and are very deep into it and know like probably way more than I know about all the details of just like personal stuff that's going on within the community and their family and stuff. Is there anything new that's coming out? I know not in the news, but like, is there anything that's coming out or that you guys have seen that is convincing in one way or the other of what happened? Let me know, because this one really got to me. I mean, I go back and forth, like, did they have something to do with it? No, didn't they? Is the reason they look like they are kind of holding back something is because they're guilty of something else, that they could get in trouble for. So therefore they are holding back something, but it doesn't have to do with Summer's disappearance. Or does it have to do with Summer's disappearance? It's a tough one.
Everybody makes mistakes, and we all have to learn and go on. We're doing better. It's still very rough for my wife.
So just recently, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation released an age-progressed photo showing what Summer would look like now. And I guess the Wells said they had to move from their community, so they had to move from their house, I guess, which I wasn't even aware that they moved because I haven't been following the case in a while. But I guess they moved. And because of threats and harassment they received, so they actually had to move. So the 2 of them live in a motel in Arkansas where Don was able to find a new job. So that's good.
Since Summer's disappearance, Don says their life has been consumed by harassment from people online who believe they're responsible for whatever happened to Summer.
Before you know it, you're getting a mob going. My wife could go to the store and somebody would scream at her. Call the cops, Candace.
He sent us videos from one of his job sites where some people were demanding to speak with him about the case.
We're gonna follow you. We're waiting here all day.
Don says it's gotten so bad he had to leave the state. Now the 2 live in a motel in Arkansas.
And then Don says that they have a private investigator that's working with the police. So it's just a mystery. It really is. Like I said, I go back and forth with what I think, but it's been 2 years now. So Don, Summer's father, still believes that she was abducted. That's what he's been saying, and he still thinks that. But Sheriff Lawson says that there's nothing pointing to abduction, nothing pointing to foul play, other than her walking outside the house and not being found. When he makes those statements, it makes no sense because there obviously was foul play, or there was obviously something going on. If he thinks that she just walked out and got lost and then died, then she wouldn't have gotten that far. If there was nobody else involved, she wouldn't have gotten that far by herself and they would have found her. So I just don't understand why he keeps saying that. That just doesn't make sense to me. There has to be some kind of foul play if there was anybody else involved. Everybody's still a person of interest, I guess, though. Sheriff Ronnie Lawson says nobody's cleared. Social services took Summer's 3 brothers from the home shortly after Summer's disappearance, and the Wells have not been able to communicate with them in half a year.
So back in the beginning when all of this happened, they were taken away about a month after Summer was reported missing. At the time, they told us that it was just because it was not safe for them to be at the home. At the time, there was a lot of YouTube speculation happening. There were a lot of people, according to them, coming onto their property and things of that nature. When I spoke with Don last week, he said that Child Protective Services made it seem that it was a little too traumatizing for them to speak with the boys. He wouldn't really elaborate on that, but that was the final statement he gave when it came to his boys. But he said that when he got out of jail in February of last year, I believe, was when we had that conversation, he did tell me that he hadn't heard from them since he was released from jail, and that's when all the communication stopped.
They even went on the Dr. Phil show. That was a little crazy. They had the behavior panel on to analyze Candace, and it didn't look too good. I feel like from their analysis, it did appear that they were hiding something maybe. But behavior analysis, that's not 100%. It's just a tool you could use. You can't use it as a conclusive thing, like as, oh, this for sure means this. It's just like kind of a tool to help. And I'm a huge fan of behavior panel, so I do love that kind of stuff. And I think they even agree it's just a tool that you use, so you wouldn't want to like make any definitive conclusions based on it. But it is a very helpful tool, if that makes any sense. So let me play a couple news clips.
I'm just having to put my faith completely in God and know that He has a better plan. And that's pretty much where I'm at. My wife is still struggling.
A lot has changed for the Wells family over the last 2 years since their daughter Summer went missing from their Beech Creek home in Hawkins County.
Social media have come out, and protested at my job, everywhere we go, and so it's hard for us to get any work or anything in Eastern Tennessee.
Wells says he and his wife Candace have been in Arkansas on and off for the last few months, where he's been working in construction. He also says they've been working with the Department of Children's Services there to get their 3 older sons back. They've been in Tennessee DCS custody since the month after Summer was reported missing.
I think they're scared of our house because of what happened, and is one of the issues, so we would like to buy another house here in Arkansas.
The house he's referring to on Ben Hill Road is where his daughter went missing from.
We couldn't understand what happened to Summer. The police couldn't understand, and they were questioning us. At times they were hard on us, and other times they weren't. Just depending on, what police agency was there at the time.
2 years later, he and Candace have no clues as to where Summer is.
We try to bounce things off of each other all the time. We might have talks about, some of the drug activity that was going on at the time and was going on right after her disappearance for quite a while. But yeah, there's nothing new.
Dawn says the family stays in touch with law enforcement through their private investigators.
About 2 months ago, they talked to our private investigators, and the FBI did, and they shared what they could with us. But they was just trying to come up with any new information or leads that they possibly could, and so far, we just haven't been able to come up with anything.
As 2 years pass with no new information publicly released, Dawn says the emotional toll is weighing on the family, especially Candace.
She's been burnt by so many people that want to, supposedly, interview her or help and stuff, and then basically turn on her in every imaginable way. She's been hurt deeply by these kind of things, plus the thought of, we lost our daughter, and, our boys are in custody also with the CPS.
He says they haven't been able to talk to their sons.
Well, at first we were allowed to talk to them and everything, but we haven't been able to talk to them for about 6 months, no contact or anything like that. And that's all we want to do, is be able to tell them that we love them and we're rooting for them, and we're working on, things to get them back.
Hope is hard to hold on to after all this time, but Dawn says he's clinging to faith.
Whatever the outcome is, I have hope in God, and one day, either sooner or later, I will be with my daughter again.
As we look at this age progression of what Summer would look like now 2 years later, what impression are you getting from law enforcement as to why they're releasing this now, the timing of this new photo?
So the last time I spoke to TBI was via email. They are not doing any updates this year. They held a press conference last year on the 1-year anniversary. However, they did tell us that Summer would not have been eligible for an age progression photo until she had been missing for 2 years. This is through the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They have a team of forensic artists. I actually spoke with someone from that organization yesterday. And so apparently it takes 2 years for these children to even be eligible for these photos. And unfortunately, this seems to be the only update that we're going to be getting in this case on this 2-year anniversary.
Evelyn from South Dakota is asking about the grandmother and what she has said about the day Summer disappeared.
The grandmother, her name is also Candace. I interviewed her back in March of last year. That was the first time she had spoken on camera. She walked us through that day. From what I remember, she was in the hospital that morning and they were out and about here in Kingsport, kind of the largest town near where they live, getting some medicine and things of that nature throughout the day. She told us that they ended up going back home and that she and Summer were planting flowers in her garden. She lived on the property with them at the time. And she said that Summer then went inside of the house and Candace, her daughter, Summer's mother, asked the boys to watch her, and that was the last time she had seen Summer. They, again, have not ruled her out as not being a suspect, have not said she is a suspect, but again, they said everybody is on the table when it comes to this case. I know that there have been some questions about her grandmother leaving the state. A lot of people have asked if that was connected to this. She's been cleared to do so. According to what she told me in that interview, the law enforcement agencies told her she was free to go as long as, she answered their phone calls when they did call. But that was the last we have heard from Summer's grandmother. When I spoke to Don last Friday, he said that she was not in Arkansas with them. He wouldn't really give me too much information about where he is. He made it seem like he didn't even know where she is. So at this point, I can't tell you where Summer's grandmother is or how connected or even disconnected she is to the case.
What more did Don say about why the boys were taken from them in the first place? This is from Cassie, and she's asking specifically, Ansley, about searches inside and outside the Wells home, canines that were involved in those searches. Did any evidence turn up then or now?
Like I mentioned before, the only evidence that we were really aware of was the dog trail incident. We were told that Summer's scent stopped at the end of the dog trail there. Law enforcement did tell us that there was a change in pavement to wooded area. So sometimes the dogs can react to the change in pavement. Obviously, there's going to be different scents when it comes to pavement and wooded areas. So again, that's really the main piece of evidence that we have.
Did the parents and any other family members take a polygraph early on in the investigation?
We were told in the beginning that both of her parents took a polygraph. If I'm not mistaken, I do believe her grandmother also told me that she took a polygraph test as well. They told us that they all came back clean. So I'm not sure about her brothers. Obviously, her brothers are juveniles, so they wouldn't release that information to us anyways. But as of now, I do know that Dawn and Candace and her grandmother did all pass their polygraph test in the beginning of this case.
What stands out to you from an investigative standpoint that a stone that may still be left unturned?
Marnie, what stands out to me right now is the fact that Hawkins County has said they're going to give an update soon. So what that indicates is this has been an active investigation, very tight-lipped, behind the scenes, with probably FBI, TBI, and of course Hawkins County at the point. So there is something going on that the sheriff felt that he would say something, but just not yet. So that tells me that this case is definitely headed for some type of revelation.
And what do you make of a newly released time progression, age progression photo that they put out, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation put out as recently as a day ago? Here we're showing that on our screen for our viewers.
Yeah, I think that is great because obviously that is a protocol from Nick, the missing and exploited NCMEC, right? And so when they do that, it's just in case the child is out there due to the Amber Alert, and somebody sees that child, they want to obviously put out the most current potential view of what she would look like.
I think the thing that so many people have a hard time reconciling is she was on her property, her family was around, her mom and grandma were there, her brothers were there reportedly, and she just vanishes. There's no evidence of an abduction that took place. The dogs picked up a scent. What do you pick up on based on what evidence has been released publicly that just is peculiar that sticks in your mind?
Well, I think, the first thing that everybody has to consider is what they call the victim risk continuum. The 5-year-olds just don't vanish from their basements. And suspects don't take that type of risk as well. If this is a stranger abduction, then the suspect is going to weigh out his risk to go up into that property, and the stars align where a 5-year-old is in a basement. So right away, the authorities, when they went up on that property, that's the information that they were faced with, that this was, from the parents, a stranger abduction. Well, statistically, when you measure that against the victim risk continuum, where you look at low, medium, and high risk environment, situation, and circumstance, this is a very low risk situation, almost like an Elizabeth Smart, where she's asleep in her bedroom. Well, this is a 5-year-old in a basement. And so that victim risk continuum tells the authorities there is a higher probability that the suspect was known to the property and or is part of the property, and it could potentially be involved in the disappearance of this child.
I want to point out to people, and some of the video we've seen on the screen has been yours. You toured this home and went into this peculiar kind of basement bedroom situation where Summer was living, where she slept. Explain to us what you saw when you were there 2 years ago.
Well, when I went into the property at the invitation of Mom, and the first thing that struck me, obviously, was this was no type of living conditions for any children at all. I mean, it was very difficult, but, my experience is, 25 years in law enforcement and as a homicide investigator, I'd seen this many, many times before. However, when she showed me how to get into the basement, that struck me as a possibility of could something have happened on the stairwell going down into that basement with a 5-year-old. Because Mom says the child went into the basement through that stairwell. When I got into that stairwell, it was dark. And you go down into this basement area, and it felt, it was dark. It was moldy in terms of the mist. There were disheveled beds in there on both sides. And it really struck me is what this child was facing. And that also gave me a better indication of why Child Protective Services may have been involved from the get-go.
One thing that both Don said, I don't know that Candace ever said this, but he was criticized for saying it, and it raised a lot of questions, was that maybe Candace had made some bad friends, some people that she shouldn't have been hanging out with that they welcomed into their lives. Did she talk about that when you had a conversation with her, and in the months subsequently, why he would say that?
She didn't mention that, and I don't recall him saying that to me, Marnie, but, Candace, when I spoke to her, she was telling things, I thought, at some point from her heart. But at the same time, my experience also told me she was not being 100% truthful, and there was just something more there. I don't know what that is, if this was an accident, if this was, something that they knew, somebody they knew, and, that type of situation. So it's a real mystery at this point, but I suspect the authorities are going to unwind it, and we'll see some, things taking place in the near future.
That is my hope and prayer, Chris, that this comes to a resolution and that little girl is out there somewhere alive and we can find her safely. Chris McDonough, former homicide detective, thank you for your time and your insight in this case. Also to Ansley Daniel with our station in Johnson City, Tennessee. To you,